Great day, students. It's Mr. Sargent here with another science video. And first of all, I just want to thank everyone out there watching this right now. This channel is up to almost 200 subscribers, and that's way more than I ever thought this would ever be. And I want to thank each and every one of you that are watching this right now. These have been really fun to do, as well as getting the work out there to students that need that review or may have missed a day. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your continued support. Now, today, I'm super excited. We got an action-packed, jam-packed video of great information. Now, we're going to be first talking about this gentleman right here. If you don't know who that is, well, I'm going to introduce you to him in a little bit. We're also going to be focusing on invertebrates. So we're going to do our little introduction on invertebrates. We're going to learn about this gentleman right here, and I couldn't be more excited. So ladies and gentlemen, let's start learning. Now, I'm going to start with the invertebrates. Now, over the past month, we have talked about vertebrates. These are fish, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, and birds. Something they all have in common is that they have backbones. And each one is unique and different, but they're all classified together because of their backbones. Well, invertebrates, kind of the opposite of that, they don't have backbones. So the animals that we're going to be talking about, the insects that we're going to be talking about, the sea creatures that we're going to be talking about, all share the common trait. They don't have backbones. That's what invertebrate means. Now, one of the most pioneering scientists in the world when it comes to invertebrates is this gentleman right here. Now, we celebrate Black History Month this February, and I could not go another video, another day without talking about Ernest Everett Just. If that name does not sound familiar, this gentleman was a pioneer when it came to marine biology and the study of invertebrates. And so I thought it would be incredible to read an epic book on the story of his life called The Vast Wonder of the World. Now, as we read through this story, and you feel free to read along with me, we're going to learn about where he started, the work he did, and what was so important to his life, and what he meant to the world of science. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back and let's read together. The Vast Wonder of the World, biologist Ernest Everett Just, by Melina Mangal, illustrated by Louisa Uribe. Woods Hole, Massachusetts, 1911. At twilight, a man lay on a dock, luring marine worms with a lantern. He scooped them out with his net and placed them in a bucket. He couldn't wait to look at them more closely. He knew the ways of the sea, though he was not a fisherman. His grandfather had built wharves, but he was not a dock worker. His name was Ernest Everett Just, and he was a scientist. Ernest was not like other scientists. He saw the whole where others saw only parts. He noticed details others failed to see. On the dock at dawn, he wrote poetry. Back in his laboratory, Ernest examined the marine worms under the microscope. He recorded and sketched their movements. How do their tiny egg cells create new life, he wondered. At a time when few expected a black man to do so well, Ernest became the world's authority on how life begins from an egg. From early on, Ernest wondered about the world of water around him. Born in Charleston, South Carolina, where rivers and oceans met, Ernest watched how fishermen netted their catch. He learned how to read from his schoolteacher mother. After his father died when he was 4, he learned how hard life could be. To find better paying work, Ernest's mother moved their family from the city across the river to the country. Soon after, Ernest caught typhoid fever. He survived, but he had lost his ability to read. He cried alone, struggling to relearn it all. Then one day, a miracle, Ernest could read again. He read as often as he could, letting his imagination roam. Words came to life as magical spirits. Ernest attended the school his mother created in the town she also established. Ernest's mother never stopped working. Ernest never stopped observing, even while cooking, cleaning, and watching his younger brother and sister. He observed how a hurricane damaged their school, how tougher segregation laws restricted African Americans, and how his mother's remarriage changed life at home. What Ernest really loved to observe though was nature. Surrounded by rivers and oceans, marsh and mud, he found plenty to explore. At 13, Ernest left home to attend a boarding school in Orangeburg, South Carolina. It was here he published his first poem. When he graduated, Ernest returned home, hoping to begin teaching in his mother's school, but a fire had destroyed it. Ernest left the segregated South on a steamship to continue his education up north. He drove into his new classes at a college preparatory school in New Hampshire. While he was away, his mother fell ill with tuberculosis and died. Ernest was stunned, full of grief and confusion. Ernest did the only thing he knew to do: return to his studies. He went to Dartmouth College, working to pay his own way and to support his brother and sister back home. With less time to study, Ernest failed a class. He thought of his family and how they depended on him. He thought of his mother's hard work and belief in education. He had to keep going. Ernest took a biology class and his life changed forever. In that class, he discovered the microscopic world of the cell. Scientists knew that the cell is the smallest building block of life, but many had only a basic understanding of how the different parts of the cell work together. As new life developed, Ernest wanted to unlock this mystery. And he did. Ernest became a biology professor at Howard University in Washington, D.C., teaching students to question and observe. Each summer, he traveled to the Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, to research and experiment. Out on the collecting boat, Ernest looked for sea urchins, sand dollars, starfish, and marine worms. He then carefully transported them to the lab in a covered bucket so the beating sun would not damage them. Most scientists carelessly remove sea animals to study, but Ernest demonstrated that by observing living things in a natural and environmental as possible, they could learn more. Ernest also taught scientists how to thoroughly cleanse glassware and equipment for the most accurate experiments. Using a simple light microscope, Ernest examined the egg cells of all of those sea animals. Night after night, day after day, while observing sand dollars, Ernest noticed a wave of movement when a sperm contacted the egg. As slight as a shiver, it signaled an amazing discovery. The egg cell directed its own development during fertilization. This controversial idea went against what most scientists thought at the time. It wasn't just the sperm creating changes. The cell surface and the layer right below it were just as important in generating new life. Ernest published his research findings in many scientific papers. He traveled to conferences to share his ideas, and he won the first NAACP Spring Iron Medal. His reputation grew. Ernest's ideas caught the attention of scientists around the world. He was the first American research scientist invited to the world-famous Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin, Germany. From then on, Ernest worked in Europe as often as long as he could. enjoying more warmth and respect than he'd ever felt in America. Despite his accomplishments, Ernest felt increasingly stifled in the United States. His family was not welcome with him in Massachusetts because of the color of their skin. He struggled for basic laboratory equipment at Howard. He didn't have the freedom white scientists had to choose where they worked. The time came when Ernest refused to tolerate the segregation any longer. He decided to move to France and become an independent researcher. Crossing the Atlantic, Ernest thought about the hundreds of students he had introduced to science and how his fascination with cells began. He poured those memories and feelings into the work and completed a groundbreaking book. Through his careful observations and hard work, Ernest opened up the wonder of the universe to all of us through a tiny egg cell. And here are some quotes. Ernest Everett, just in his own words: "If I can give the boys and girls a scientific start, it will help them on whatever they may do later. Live with the true, and when you are ready to embark on life's unknown waters, place yourself at the helm, confident of but one destination: success. Environment and organism are one. Neither can be separated from the other. Life is not only a struggle against the surroundings from which life came, it is also a cooperation with them. Life is exquisitely a time thing, like music." So much good information about Dr. Just. Now, to continue with this, one of the big things that he talked about were invertebrates. And if you look behind me, you will see a number of invertebrates. It's important to understand that invertebrates do not have backbones, yet they're all different, just like our vertebrates. So to introduce invertebrates today, we have vocabulary. So sit back and
invertebrates. They have no backbone. You might have heard of them. Like a sponge, their shape is asymmetric, which means each side is shaped real different. So take notes if you're willing to learn. The next invertebrate is an echinoderm, like sea stars and sand dollars living in the sea, and their bodies have radial symmetry, which means body parts are arranged around the center. Draw a line down the middle, it's like holding up a mirror. I almost forgot to talk about Nigerians. I try to stay away. Yeah, they're pretty scary because they don't have heads and they don't use fins. Most use their tentacles when they swim, and they sting like jellyfish, coral, hydra, anemone. I would never wish for them to sting a friend or enemy. Invertebrates. We learn about them through their symmetry and similar traits. You better sing with me. I said invertebrates. No backbone, but we can't forget them. They're the most common creatures in the animal kingdom. There's more invertebrates that we should be considering. Let's talk about a few that have bilateral symmetry. If you draw a line all the way down their center, they have two halves that only match each other. See? Like worms in the water or the ground, invertebrates are everywhere. There's more to be found. Take mollusks like snails, octopus, squid, and slugs. They can be huge or small as little bugs. They have gooey bodies and a foot for moving, and they'll keep covered by a layer that we call the mantle. The last invertebrate I'll share is the arthropod. Look around and you'll see they're not hard to spot. Like arachnids, spiders, or scorpions, crustaceans, and insects. Yeah, there are more of those. Even with no backbone, there's something that's protecting them. A hard covering that we call an exoskeleton. Invertebrates. We learn about them through their symmetry and similar traits. You better sing with me. I said invertebrates. No backbone, but we can't forget them. They're the most common creatures in the animal kingdom.
I know. I keep saying it. Vocabulary is incredible. Now, today was merely our introduction to our invertebrates. As we go through the week, we're going to be talking about all of the different smaller classifications of invertebrates. We're even going to get a chance to see some of them under a microscope. I'm excited, ladies and gentlemen, but that's enough learning for today. Ladies and gentlemen, go enjoy the rest of your day, and until I see you again, have a great night.